Okay. So, Lola, what is going on in the US? What is going on?
Well, we had a recent murder of George Floyd, and now America is up in fire. You have people protesting,
Yeah.
you have people, tearing up their city. You have a lot of people out here busting out windows, destroying businesses,
Looting,
looting,
vandalizing.
yeah, vandalizing buildings, things of that nature. And right now they're issuing this as a state of emergency.
Mm.
And they're also giving us curfews to where you have to be in. You cannot be out past 8 o'clock at night.
Okay. So, I found this video of the governor of New York
Mm-hmm.
commenting about police officers killing black men in the US. So just
Mm-hmm.
listen to it. I'm going to play the video. Listen.
Well-meaning Americans stand with the protesters. It's not an isolated incident. It is a continuum of cases and situations that have been going on for decades and decades and decades. These are just chapters in a book. And the title of the book is Continuing Injustice and Inequality in America. And these are just chapters. The chapters started modern day Rodney King in Los Angeles, 1991. Abner Louima in New York, 1997. Amadou Diallo in New York, 1999. Sean Bell in New York, 2006. Oscar Grant, Oakland, California, 2009. Eric Garner, New York City, 2014. Michael Brown, Missouri, 2014. Laquan McDonald, Chicago, 2014. Freddie Gray, Baltimore, 2015. Antoine Rose, Pittsburgh, 2018. Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, 2020. Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, 2020. George Floyd in Minneapolis, 2020. That's why the outrage. That's why the frustration.
Are you listening?
Yes.
It's not about one situation. It's about the same situation happening again.
Let me replay
Why
this.
the outrage? That's why the frustration and the anger. It is not about one situation. It's about the same situation happening again and again and again
Mm-hmm.
and again. And seeing the same thing and not learning the lesson. And then it's that happening in a broader context and a broader circumstance.
Okay. This idea that same situation happening again and again.
Mm-hmm.
So what is going on? How come police officers in the US are killing black men? What is going on?
Well, it's because the way the Constitution is written, a lot of us have to come to understand when the Constitution was written, we were not seen as human beings in this country. In 1865, when the Proclamation of Emancipation came out, yes, that freed us from being chattel slaves, but they never gave us full and inalienable rights as white men in this country. So that's where the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment still keeps you with a slave status at any point. If
Okay.
you are detained by law enforcement, you no longer have rights,
As how? What rights they don't have?
which means that when you're being detained,
Mhm.
because you're being detained,
Mhm.
once you go to jail and you're in the prison system, you no longer have rights. You're back in the slave status again, and that's the loopholes that they found within the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment.
What makes black Americans different from other citizens of the US?
What makes us different is white citizens, they have full and inalienable rights. African Americans don't. And it stems from slavery. They never fixed the Constitution when it came to African Americans. That's why we've had the killings over the last 100 years with law enforcement. This is nothing new. He only was kind talking about the recent ones, but this has been going on since the 1920s all the way till now. And it's because the Constitution needs to change, and we need to be seen as human beings in this country. And we also have to get rid of the black laws that are still against us, still in the law books, that still justifies the murder of black men when it comes to law enforcement. They don't see us as full citizens. That's why they do the things that they do when it comes to police brutality. That is why.
So that is why police officers are killing black or African
Yes,
American men.
yes, with a passion. We had Breonna Taylor. It was so many killings within 1 week after each other. It was overwhelming for me because I covered these stories. I take these stories to bed with me, and I wake up and a new murder by law enforcement has been committed.
Okay, listen to the rest part of the video. He made a comment because this video for me, I find it very, very
which is what's going
important.
on with the coronavirus.
Listen, let me play it back.
And again and again. And seeing the same thing and not learning the lesson. And then it's that happening in a broader context and a broader circumstances, which is what's going on with the coronavirus. Which affects and kills more minorities than anyone else. You look around this country and you look at the people who are dying of the coronavirus, it is disproportionate African American people. And it's just a continuing injustice, and that's the frustration, and that's the protests. Nobody is sanctioning the arson and the burglary, but the protesters and the anger and the fear and the frustration, yes. Yes. And the demand is for justice. And when the prosecutor came out and said, well, there's other evidence.
Okay, what's going on with the coronavirus cases? How come African American people are dying from coronavirus more than other ethnic groups in the US?
Well, that's because we also have medical discrimination, which means that we do not get the same medical treatments as our white counterparts in this country. In the beginning, they were telling African Americans here that we could not get the coronavirus. Remember, they were trying to say that we were immune to the coronavirus?
That is what we heard at the
Okay.
beginning. Right now, some police officers are even joining the protests to protest against the killings of black men by white police officers. What will you say about that? Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that this is really something that has been going on for the last 100 years in our country with police brutality towards African American. It stems from systematic racism and how they view us in America.
Okay.
It really is heartbreaking that in 2020 this is still going on. This should have been rectified through the civil rights movements of the 1950s. This could have been the end of police brutality, but it did not end. Why? Because they truly do not value Africans' lives. They do not. They disregard our lives. And that's something that is still going on today because we need new laws that actually punishes police officers that are caught doing these practices. They need to start vetting who they allow on the force and make
Okay.
sure.
Okay, police officers who are supposed to provide security for the people who we always rely on in terms of any violence, conflicts, they are the ones killing black men in the US.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
and and this officer that killed George Floyd,
mm,
he had already had 10 demerits throughout the year against him about his excessive force. He had so many reports against him, but yet his superiors still kept him on the force, knowing how he was brutalizing African
oh,
Americans. He killed a Native American man back in 2008. After that, he still was
oh,
allowed to still to be on the force. He had
okay.
a record of brutalizing minorities and they did absolutely
Oh,
nothing. So his office, his
okay.
superior actually stepped down from his position.
Mm, okay, so he has that record for a long
Yes,
time,
for a
and
long
they
time they
allow.
did nothing.
Oh,
He had complaints against him for years and they did nothing. And
Okay.
also, this was the same state
Mm,
that Fidel Castile was murdered in back in 2014. He was gunned down by law enforcement unjustly with his child in the back seat and his girlfriend. So Minneapolis have a long history of also murdering African Americans that were doing nothing wrong. This is not the first time that that has happened in Minneapolis. They've had a few deaths throughout the years with police brutality, and each and every time, nothing is done. And the officers get fired, but they never face justice for what they're doing. They do not go to jail.
hmm. So, do you mean that white supremacy is still going on in the US?
Oh, yes, the Klan, if you know the Ku Klux Klan,
Yeah.
they went behind the scenes, but they became law enforcement. They no longer have to wear the mask because they're law enforcement now. And it's not all of them, but a lot of them still have that good old boy mentality. When they see another officer brutalizing an African American, they stand back and do nothing. And it's like when you say nothing, that makes you guilty. And that has to change. When other officers who are truly against racism start standing in and
Mm,
saying, I'm not going to let you do this,
mm,
that's when things will change. That has not begun to happen. Even though last night we saw an officer take a knee with protesters in New York
mm,
saying that he wants to rectify this whole situation. They have the highest record in New York City right now of police brutality against minorities because of what Bloomberg and also what Joe Biden laws did with African Americans back in the 90s. All these problems stem from the system that they put in place to oppress us, but nobody wants to talk about that. This is why in
mm,
2020 we're still being murdered by law enforcement and we never get full justice. This is why.
mm. Okay. The governor of New York, Chris Cuomo,
Mm-hmm.
they said that the same thing is going on with the cases of coronavirus, that African Americans are dying from coronavirus more than their white counterparts. So why is it that African American people are dying more from coronavirus as well?
Okay, one, we were given a lot of falsehoods about the coronavirus in the beginning.
Mm,
In the beginning, they were saying that African Americans or African people were not susceptible to the virus. I remember them saying that.
yeah.
We also have to go look at medical discrimination again, which stems from white supremacy. For years, we have had the poorest health system within our communities. Most African Americans do not have health insurance, so they don't get the best care from their physicians. Most of them do not have doctors in their community that actually really care about their health. We
Mm,
have a broken healthcare system because of racism. You do not get the same treatment as your white counterparts
mm,
do. That's what a lot of our problems stem from. Here in America, our mortality rate with even mother and children is really high. You have more black African American children and black
mm,
mothers dying in childbirth than their white counterparts. All of that is high
mm,
in our community because we need to redo the healthcare system and get rid of the history of
mm,
racism within our medical field as well.
mm, mm,
Most black people, even in high areas, you had African Americans turned away twice trying to get a coronavirus test, and they went home later died. They could I'm sorry, they come they just succumbed to their disease and they died, and they did not ever get a test. You have a lot of people
mm,
were turning them away from testing.
mm.
You had
Sys-
four African.
Systemic racism. Systemic
Yes,
racism. Mm,
yes. They succumbed to their disease because they were not getting the right treatment. The doctor kept sending them home, or they would not see them at all. You had 4 employees at Walmart die 2 weeks of each other because, again, they were not given the coronavirus test. They were sent back home and told that they weren't really a priority for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of that still going on today. In New York City, they did the same thing. They were turning away a lot of African Americans from getting treatment, and they died. So until we can talk about the true reason behind why it's an uneven amount of Black people dying versus their white counterpart,
Mm.
nothing's going to change. When you try to explain systematic racism,
Mm.
a lot of them try to gaslight you and say, well, you know, it's not about color. It has nothing to do with race. But why is it every time, really, when it comes down to race relations?
Mm.
Look at what happened back during the race rally they had in Charlotte, North Carolina. He never condemned the white nationalists that were killed for fine people. So back then, he was telling you where he stood with the white nationalists. Back in 2016, they killed 4 people in the Charlotte, North Carolina rally about the monuments. He never condemned the actions of the white nationalists, and a lot of people paid attention to that. Every time when there's something that's race related,
Mm.
he never really is held accountable for what he's saying. He even called Africa a blank hole
Mm.
country, as
Mm.
well as Haiti. So that goes to show you, if you feel that way about my homeland, that means you cannot care too much about the people neither. Our own president said that about our continent.
So he also has the history of racial discrimination.
Yes,
So
it was an older woman trying to rent one of his properties, and he turned her application down and never explained why she could not live there. He
exactly,
he
exactly.
kept denying her application, and
Mm.
that's when she turned over and said, "I feel that I'm being discriminated against for the housing here." And eventually, they just disregarded it. But that he does have a history of being racist even within his housing. You're 100% right. And he is not, personally, I feel that he is not fit to handle the situation because he's a part of the problem. He never
Exactly.
condemns the
Uh,
behavior.
exactly. That's what I wanted to say before, that he is not fit to handle this type of
Yes,
situation at all. Because when
because
you
he's a part of the problem.
exactly, exactly. But right now, person like you and others, what are you doing? Are you guys joining the protest?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I am a proud Pan Africanist and I am a Black activist. And
Mm.
we have been protesting here
Mm. Mm.
in Virginia. We marched on Friday of last week for George Floyd. I'm sorry, and we
Mm.
also did do I Run with a Mod when that happened. We
Mm.
had so many things going on within weeks of each other. We
Mm.
had a whole rally where we marched and we shut down the street for 8 minutes,
Mm.
and so many people were moved by that, to the point you had white, you had black, you had everybody out there in
Mm.
full support of what we're protesting. We've had a lot of peaceful and a lot of successful protests that really have went very well. And we still are doing protesting, even on our own personal platforms. We're speaking about these issues. I speak about these issues daily. We are
Okay.
really taking a lot of actions and holding people accountable for what they're doing. Black people are also boycotting voting this year until they come up with the solution for African Americans. We are actually withholding our vote.
Oh, okay. So the voting is coming up when this
And
year?
November
N-
2nd is voting time. And a lot of Black people are saying that if they do not have a resolution for us, they will not get our vote. And that goes for Democrat or Republican. I'm neither. But that's what Black people are saying. They do not have our support.
But when you say black people are saying? Is it all black people or few?
I'm going to say,
Hmm.
I'll go ahead and say a lot of black people feel that way because Charlamagne the God, he's a radio host. He
Hmm.
even was talking about the voting, how he might sit this election out because of things that have happened in this country that they're not addressing. So it is unanimous. I would say many black people have said that,
Hmm.
especially the ones that I'm protesting with. We've all said that we're going to withhold our vote until change with race relations
Hmm.
actually happen. Also, reparations. That's something else that we are still requesting
Hmm.
for everything that have been stolen and taken from us. We want that back, and we want to be made full citizens in this country to stop the discrimination and hatred against our people. That's something that we're asking for in this presidential election. But as I said many times before, we
Hmm.
cannot continue to rely on those who have oppressed us. We have to have our own political voice. We're actually working to get our own political party started
For
because
black people.
that's for black people. We need our own political party. And that's something that I'm working behind the scenes on now. The Natural Man, he has his own platform where he's actually trying to get all of us to come together and form our own political party so
No,
that
you.
way we can speak
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
so we can speak on our own issues because this is not a Democrat or Republic issue because we've voted for these people for the last 100 years in this country, and what has really changed? And we're still being killed by law enforcement,
Hmm. Okay.
still have poor education and poor medical. We already had a
No.
black president,
Mm-hmm.
and he did nothing for his people. Barack Obama did nothing to change the discrimination that we were facing. We
Mm-hmm.
had the murder of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown during his presidency, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing changed. So that goes to show you it does not matter if you have a black person in there, if he does not have the heart of his people and he's not listening to the voice of his people, nothing's going to change. That's why we have to hand select our own people that we want to speak for us. It's going to take all of us supporting one another for things to change. We're even talking about even possibly just breaking away from their society and just do our own thing.
Ah,
It's
that.
time.
No. Do you think that would be possible? No. No, I don't think so.
The thing about it though, all I'm going to say is this. All I'm going to say is this, and I'm not trying to create controversy, but Malcolm X said
Mm,
we have to
mm,
start depending on our own. As long as we depend on our oppressors, nothing's going to change for
mm.
us. We're still dependent on those who
Oh,
are oppressing us.
exactly, exactly. But that would be difficult. That would
The
be
thing
very
about
difficult to separate.
the
The
thing about
separation, yeah.
it would be difficult, but I'm gonna tell you something. You have a lot of black people that are globally that are fed up with the systemic racism and hatred that is still being inflicted on us. So if they truly want us to be a part of their society,
Mm.
why do they still want to have the systematic racism that keeps us down? They don't